Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. So, we'll be analyzing the poem A Little Boy Lost from Songs of Experience in this lesson. Let us begin. Not loves another as itself, nor venerates another so, nor is it possible to thought a greater than itself to know. And Father, how can I love you or any of my brothers more? I love you like the little bird that picks up crumbs around the door. The priest sat by and heard the child. In trembling zeal, he seized his hair. He led him by his little coat, and all admired the priestly care. And standing on the altar high, lo, what a fiend is he, said he, one who sets reason up for judge of our most holy mystery. The weeping child could not be heard. The weeping parents wept in vain. They stripped him to his little shirt and bound him in an iron chain and burned him in a holy place where many had been burned before. The weeping parents wept in vain. Are such things done on Albion's shore? So, so in this poem, a child asks innocent questions that challenge the church's authority, and this curiosity leads to harsh punishment. So the poem criticizes strict religious institutions, showing how a priest reacts violently to simple questioning. So we'll begin from the first stanza. Not loves another as itself, nor venerates another so, nor is it possible to thought a greater than itself to know. So in the opening stanza of Little Boy Lost, William Blake reflects on the limits of love and understanding. The poem begins by saying that no one can love another person exactly the same way they love themselves. So this idea suggests that love is naturally connected to a person's own identity and feelings. Blake questions the idea of completely selfless love and shows that human relationships may always include some level of self interest. So the lines, nor venerates another so, or nor is it possible to thought a greater than itself to know, it further explains that people cannot fully admire or understand something that is greater than themselves. So it is always self love first. So, by presenting these ideas at the beginning, Blake prepares the reader for the criticism that appears later in the poem. Okay, so he'll be criticizing very much self explanatory the people or the ideologies or the authorities or the institutions or organizations which ask the public, which ask the people to selflessly love any other thing, any other organization, institution, or religion. Okay, Blake is saying the opposite. So he suggests that when people believe their own views are the are the only truth, they may reject other ideas. यानी कि these people जो कह रहे हैं that these organizations, these institutions, these ideas, perspectives, ideologies, they must be loved more than a person himself, यानी कि selfless. तो इसका मतलब ये है that when they are saying this, when they are suggesting this, so they also believe in this idea. Okay, so if anybody is going to go against their idea, so it is going to be a problem for them. They're going to go against that person. So this can lead to control of thought by powerful authorities, which becomes clear in the later events of the poem. यानी सामने वाला बोलेगा ए तुम्हारी इधर हिम्मत कैसे हुई हमारे फलाने बंदे के खिलाफ, हमारे लीडर के खिलाफ, हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशन के खिलाफ, हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के खिलाफ कुछ बात कहने की. ओके, क्यों? बिकॉज ही हिमसेल्फ वैसे तो ही इज आस्किंग अदर्स टू सेल्फलेसली लव अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, लेकिन ये क्या कर रहा है? ही इज कीपिंग हिज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, हिज आइडियोलॉजी अबव ऑल. तो वो जो दूसरों को कह रहा है कि सेल्फलेस लव दो मेरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को, खुद वो क्या कर रहा है? ओके, so the opening stanza, therefore, introduces philosophical ideas that foreshadow the tragic events that follow. So, with this, we now move on to the second stanza. And Father, how can I love you or any of my brothers more? I love you like the little bird that picks up crumbs around the door. So, in this stanza, the speaker is a child who questions the usual ideas about love within a family. The child asks his father why he should love his father or brothers more than himself. So, this simple question shows the child's confusion about the rules that society sets about who should be loved more. Okay, so ये जो question है, it is showing the confusion of the child किसके ऊपर? अबाउट द रूल्स दैट द सोसाइटी हैज सेट, ओके ना, फॉर एनीबडी, फॉर एवरीवन, ओके, किसके बारे में? दैट हु शुड बी लव्ड मोर. So to explain his idea, the child compares love to a little bird picking up crumbs near a door. This comparison suggests that love is a natural and instinctive thing, just like the bird's simple action. The child believes that love should be free and natural, not controlled by any strict rules. So this stanza prepares the reader for the main theme of the poem, which is the criticism of authority and institutions. The child's innocent question unintentionally challenges the accepted beliefs of society, जहाँ से problem खड़ी हो जाती है. The stanza also highlights the purity and honesty of a child's thoughts. Before being influenced by society, a child understands love in a simple and natural and true manner. This is what Blake is suggesting. So through this, Blake shows the conflict between innocence and authority. Okay, तो innocent form of love तो ये, authority का form of love कुछ और है. And also between individual freedom and the rules that are imposed by the institutions. Okay. With this, we move on to the third stanza. The priest sat by and heard the child in trembling zeal. He seized his hair, he led him by his little coat, and all admired the priestly care. So, in these lines from this poem, an important moment occurs when the priest hears the child's innocent thoughts and reacts very strongly. At first, the priest seems calm and caring as he sits and he listens to the child. However, this appearance quickly changes when the priest suddenly grabs the child by the hair after understanding what the boy is saying. So, this harsh action shows that how religious authority can force its beliefs on someone who is innocent and curious. So William Blake uses this moment to criticize how religious institutions sometimes respond harshly to people who question their ideas. The priest then leads, yani ki grabs the child by his little coat. At first, this moment looked like the priest is protecting the child, but Blake uses irony here. In reality, the priest is controlling and punishing the child. The people watching praise the priest for his care, which shows that society often accepts the actions of religious leaders without questioning them. तो पाकिस्तान में रहते हुए ये तो आपको बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आनी चाहिए ये वाली बात. Through this scene, Blake criticizes not only the strict authority of religious leaders but also the way society supports or ignores such actions. मौली साहब क्या कह रहे हैं, इमाम साहब क्या कह रहे हैं, वो गलत हो ही नहीं सकते, हमारी सोसाइटी के दिमागों में ये बिठा दिया गया है. He encourages readers to think about how blind respect for authority can allow injustice to continue. Okay, with this we move on to the fourth stanza. And standing on the altar high, lo, what a fiend is here, said he, one who sets reason up for judge of our most holy mystery. बड़ी जबरदस्त बात है यार, मजेदार. In this stanza, the situation becomes more serious. The priest puts the child on a high altar, सबके सामने ले गया, and calls him a fiend because he dared to question religious beliefs. यानी कि because he's questioning religion तो वो devil बन गया, बुरा बन गया. Okay, so the image of the child standing high on the altar shows how the innocent child is exposed to the harsh judgment of religious authority. The child's position on the altar also shows the power difference between the priest and the boy. The priest uses his authority to control and condemn the child for asking questions. When the priest cries, "Lo, what a fiend is here!" it shows how strongly he condemns anyone who doubts religious teachings. Through this, William Blake criticizes the way religious institutions sometimes suppress questioning and independent thinking. So the priest then accuses the child of trying to make reason judge religious mysteries. हालांकि यही होना चाहिए. Reason must judge the religious mysteries. Okay, लेकिन he is being क्या कहते हैं punished for doing the right thing. That how is he judging the religious mysteries through reason? जो चीज होनी चाहिए वही चीज गलत बन गई. So this is the main conflict of the poem. Blake challenges the idea that religion should never be questioned and must only be accepted with blind faith. Blake इस idea को challenge कर रहा है. Okay, so this stanza is an important turning point in the poem. It clearly shows the conflict between strict religious authority and the natural human desire to think, question, and understand. Through this scene, Blake also criticizes a society that values blind belief more than critical thinking. Stanza 5. The weeping child could not be heard. The weeping parents wept in vain. They stripped him to his little shirt and bound him in an iron chain. Oof. So, in this stanza, a very sad and tragic scene takes place. The child is crying, but no one listens to him. His parents are also crying, but their grief cannot stop the priest's action because the priest and the religion and the authority is more powerful than the parents. वो फैसला करेंगे कि पेरेंट्स के बच्चों के साथ क्या होगा, पेरेंट्स नहीं. So the repeated use of the word weeping makes the scene more emotional and shows how helpless the child and his parents are in front of powerful religious authority. The child cries not being heard shows how individual voices and disagreement are ignored in a strict religious system. William Blake uses this moment to show how lonely and powerless a person can feel when facing such authority. The priest then strips the child to his little shirt. Yani ke it means that the priest removes the child's outer clothes, leaving him only in his small undershirt, and ties him with an iron chain, which adds physical cruelty to the previous emotional suffering. So the image of a small innocent child tied with a chain shows how harsh and inhuman religious oppression can be. So the word stripped also suggests that the child is left defenseless and exposed, emphasizing his weakness against powerful forces. Through these strong images, Blake shows the terrible consequences of questioning religious beliefs and the pain it causes not only to the child but also to his family. The iron chain becomes a symbol of both physical punishment and the mental and spiritual restrictions imposed by strict religious rules. With this, we move on to the sixth and the final stanza of the poem. So, in this stanza, the poem reaches a very tragic and shocking ending. Oof. The child is burned in a holy place, which creates a feeling of horror. This punishment is carried out in a place that is supposed to be holy, that is supposed to be sacred, making readers question how such cruelty can happen in the name of religion. By placing a violent act in a holy setting, William Blake shows the hypocrisy of religious institutions that claim to be moral but commit cruel acts. The word burned is also symbolic because it represents not only the child's physical death but also the instruction of innocence, individuality, and the freedom to question authority. So the repeated line, the weeping parents wept in vain, shows that the parents' sorrow cannot save their child. Their love is powerless against the strict authority of the church. Blake uses this moment to show the terrible consequences faced by people who question religious beliefs. So the poem ends with the question: are such things done on Albion's shore? Albion actually is an ओल्ड पोएटिक नेम फॉर इंग्लैंड. इंग्लैंड की फुटबॉल प्रीमियर लीग के अंदर एक टीम का नाम भी है ब्राइटन होव एंड एल्बियन. Okay, so Albion is an old poetic name for England. By asking this question, Blake is criticizing society and asking readers to think about how such cruel acts can be accepted. The ending encourages the people to reflect on the dark side of organized religion and the need for the change. With this, we move on to the themes that are present in the poem. Okay, so through the poem, William Blake criticizes religious authority, strict control and suppression of independent thinking. और इसी से related सारी themes है हमारे पास. पहली theme क्या है? Religious oppression. The poem strongly shows how religion can be used to control people. The priest who represents religious authority reacts angrily when the little boy asks innocent questions. He grabs the child and finally burns him in a holy place. These actions show how religious institutions may use harsh punishment to stop people from questioning their beliefs. The poem shows the tragic result of stopping people. ये कौन सी थीम है? ये है सप्रेशन ऑफ इंडिविजुअलिटी। ओके, सो द पोएम शोज द ट्रैजिक रिजल्ट ऑफ स्टॉपिंग पीपल फ्रॉम थिंकिंग फॉर देमसेल्व्स। अगर वो थिंक करेंगे फॉर देमसेल्व्स तो क्या होगा? दे विल बी सप्रेस्ड। सो द बॉय सिंपली आस्क्स एन इनोसेंट क्वेश्चन अबाउट द लव and compares it to a bird picking up crumbs. However, the priest punishes him for this. By doing so, the priest forces the child to obey authority and destroys his freedom to think independently. Next theme is innocence and cruelty. Another important theme is the contrast between the innocent child and the cruel priest. The boy is harmless and curious, while the priest responds with violence. The child's crying and the parent's helpless sorrow make the situation even more tragic and show the cruelty of the punishment. Okay, ji. Next theme is the social criticism. At the end of the poem, Blake asks a powerful question that criticizes society. He wonders how such cruelty can happen in a civilized country. The line questions whether society allows such terrible acts in the name of religion, and it is for the readers to answer. Okay? With this, we move on to the literary devices. The first literary device is symbolism. So, poet is using different poetic techniques, figurative language to express his criticism of religious oppression and suppression of independent thinking. The first literary device is symbolism. Blake uses symbols to express deeper ideas. The little boy represents innocence and curiosity, while the priest represents religious authority, okay, and organized religion. The burning of the child in a holy place symbolizes the destructive results of strict and oppressive religious practices. The next literary device is imagery. Blake uses strong and vivid descriptions to create pictures in the reader's mind. For example, the child being stripped to his little shirt, tied with an iron chain, burned in a holy place. It creates disturbing and emotional image that makes the tragedy more powerful. Next is alliteration. Blake repeats the same starting sound in some words to create emphasis and rhythm. For example, the repeated W sound in weeping child, weeping parents, wept in vain. It makes the scene sound more emotional and sorrowful. Next literary device is irony. Blake uses irony to show the contradiction between what should be holy and what is actually cruel. The child is buried in a holy place. तो होली प्लेस पे तो होली काम होना चाहिए, वहां पे बच्चे को जलाने का काम हो रहा है. सो दिस इज आयरनी विच शुड बी अ प्लेस. द होली प्लेस शुड बी अ प्लेस ऑफ गुडनेस एंड प्रोटेक्शन. This contrast highlights Blake's criticism of religious cruelty carried out in the name of faith. Now is repetition. Blake repeats वही वाली बात है, certain words to emphasize important ideas. The repetition of the word weeping increases the emotional impact and shows the deep sadness of the child and his parents throughout the poem. Child and parents क्या कर रहे हैं बेचारे, रो ही रहे हैं. Now we move on to the structure and the form of the poem. This poem is made up of 6 quatrains. The poem follows an ABCB rhyme scheme, where the second and the fourth lines of each stanza rhyme. Using quatrains allows Blake to express ideas clearly and concisely in each stanza. The orderly structure mirrors the strict controlling nature of the religious authority that the poem criticizes. The regular form also highlights the contrast between the innocent little boy and the harsh, oppressive priest. The neat and symmetrical structure acts as a backdrop that makes the child's questioning and the priest's poor reaction even more striking. Blake's simple and conversational language adds another layer. Its straightforward style contrasts with the heavy, serious themes of the poem, emphasizing the tension between innocence and authority. With this, we end this lesson. I hope you understood everything. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. Jazakallah.